It's hard to believe, but it's been nearly 5 years since Alien Earth was first announced as being in development. I've followed the updates on the channel during this time, I've shared my thoughts, my reservations, my theories, and now the time has finally come. For the first time ever, we have a television series based on Ridley Scott's beloved 1979 classic Alien. That alone has always been a distinct appeal to me. We've never had anything alien-related that was in the form of an episodic TV show, and the big question is, could something like that actually work? It's a different format, it's a different form of storytelling, and for the longest time, TV was thought to be the lesser medium compared to film. The lines are certainly blurred today. TV shows can feel like an 8 to 10 hour movie, and carry just as much prestige and quality as any movie, which maybe ends up on the big screen for a few weeks but finds itself on the exact same streaming app anyway. So it is different today. It is, I suppose, the best possible moment in time for Alien to have a TV show that would rightly bring with it the standards that I and many other fans feel it deserves. With Noah Hawley as the showrunner, it already had the advantage. His television track record speaks for itself and his reputation precedes him. With big Disney bucks behind the project, it was safe to assume we wouldn't get something that felt like a cheap knockoff of Alien, rather than something meant to be in the same company standing shoulder to shoulder with it. And they put their money where their mouth is with this one. They advertised it better than any other show I can think of. For a good year, we were already getting the teasers, which were exactly that, teasers that teased and maybe even frustrated a little bit. But then we saw more, we learned more of the show. They had those crash site pop-ups all over that were these interactive experiences. Fans could check them out and feel like they were actually on a crashed ship investigating the horrors that could be found within. For a select few, the premiere even got the theatrical treatment. Special fan events were held at theaters where the first episode played and some swag was given out. There were international premieres that included the cast and big names and big crowds, and they literally treated this as if it were a movie. The hype was very much real, and most importantly, they treated Alien like a big deal, with respect, and that's the right way to do it. That's something I truly appreciate. So regardless of how I may currently feel, or may feel in the future, about Alien Earth itself, based on individual episodes and based on the season and eventually the series as a whole, that's something that stands out as important to me. As a fan, as someone who holds Alien very dearly to my heart, this approach has not gone unnoticed, and I am thankful for it. But maybe that's enough preamble. I'm here today to talk about Alien Earth, Season 1, Episode 1, titled Neverland. It premiered, along with the second episode, on Tuesday, August 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, airing on the FX network, concurrently being made available to stream on Hulu and Disney+. Hopes were understandably high, and if you want the short, spoiler-free version, I think it delivered pretty nicely, and I've enjoyed what I've seen so far. It was pretty quick and pretty easy to get invested into the characters and the situation, and I've actually found myself in a little bit of a conflict. How much of this show am I liking just as a show, and how much am I liking it from the perspective as an Alien fan who admittedly has a certain set of demands? And ultimately, does it really matter? So I guess I'll be exploring that conflict today, but if you're looking to avoid spoilers, then here's your warning that they will be following. I'm going to get into them from this point forward. First of all, I'm actually kind of glad that I brushed up on the series before it aired and watched all the trailers and behind-the-scenes stuff and interviews, so I already knew what I was getting into. While maybe there were some slight spoilers that came with that, it felt good to have at least a little bit of preparation. This entire episode is basically setting everything up, and it's the following episode that lets things loose a little bit more. I can kind of understand why they wanted to air both at the same time as essentially a special 2-hour event. Right as the first episode opens, we have some catching up to do. We're shown the text on the screen that provides us with an important distinction within this world. In the future, the race for immortality will come in 3 guises. Cybernetically enhanced humans, cyborgs. Artificially intelligent beings, synths. I prefer the term artificial person myself. And synthetic beings downloaded with human consciousness, hybrids. An important note going in, but even if it happens to escape your memory, the show makes it fairly clear as it goes along anyway. A final note before we start states that which technology prevails will determine what corporation rules the universe.
Everybody got that?
We open on the scientific research vessel, the USCSS Majinino, in deep space as the title reveals itself in the typical hieroglyphic alien fashion. Splices of creepy alien imagery are intercut, raising the tension with some unnerving music on the soundtrack. The opening inside the Majinino is anything but alien to Alien fans. It is unmistakably alien, almost to a fault. The Majinino may as well be the Nostromo. It is, after all, also a Weyland-Yutani ship. Maybe brand new at the time of its mission launch, but probably such a design would have been outdated by the time the Nostromo's small crew of space truckers had access to one. Not only are the sets identical, but even some of the shots are exactly the same and framed to the T to explicitly remind you of the first film from Ridley Scott. The mise-en-scene is replicated to almost excruciating detail. Even the same kind of little food containers, and, of course, Aspen beer. Maybe it's a case of homage going a little too far, but I think in Howley's view, it was just integral to remind viewers that they're watching something that is unmistakably related to Alien. After this section, it goes on to other parts of the story which are quite different, so much so that one may be wondering if they're actually watching the right show, and it's important to have this presented at the beginning and left in the back of your mind as it continues. We get to meet the Majinino's crew, and I think they're established effectively here. Some further exposition is run through, with the crew explaining which corporations run what within the universe. Strategically placed as the gang trying to help out a younger crew member, likely an apprentice engineer who needs some help with his social studies. They explain Weyland-Yutani, their employer, who control the North and South Americas. Dynamic, who controls the moon. We're told 4 companies govern the globe. Well, 5 now, including this new one, which began 10 years prior, Prodigy Corporation, which specializes in synths and AI. It was founded by the world's first trillionaire, Boy Cavalier. We will, of course, be meeting him later. We're spared of the complete social studies lesson, and they move through it pretty quickly, so all 5 corporations aren't name-dropped. But again, in reading up on all of the information leading up to the show, they were named in an earlier press release. In the year 2120, the Earth is governed by 5 corporations: Prodigy, Weyland-Yutani, Lynch, Dynamic, and Threshold. In this corporate era, cyborgs, humans with both biological and artificial parts, and synthetics, humanoid robots with artificial intelligence, exist alongside humans. At this point in the story, the Majinino is still about 4 months away from returning to Earth with their cargo of alien specimens. They are awake now, convening to take stock of some unexpected developments. The captain informs them that the ship's communications are down, and the log files have been corrupted. The ship is burning too much fuel. Some systems may need to be shut down. One crew member brushes these things off as a glitch, but we already may be having suspicions that there could be sabotage afoot. Clearly, we're meant to have some suspicions drawn to one of the characters, Tang, the ship's navigator. He has an off-putting attitude about him. People don't seem to get along with him. But could he be a synthetic? Could he be filling in the Russian spy, Ash-type role of the group in this version? We see him looking over one of the crew members still in hypersleep with great attention. Very likely this is the host for the alien that wreaks havoc on the crew later on. But maybe Tang is just supposed to be a red herring. Does he really know something, or is he just an asshole and a pervert? That could very well be. Keep in mind, if you remember those viral videos showing the hidden camera on the cat's collar, our suspicions should be elsewhere. This guy, Rahim, is the one who attached this camera collar to the cat in the first place, and he told the cat he was going to make him rich. But maybe his sneaky actions are unrelated to the disaster that follows. Maybe we have 2 spies or saboteurs. Maybe Rahim and Tang are in cahoots. Who knows? After the crew goes back into hypersleep, there are some quick flashes of what happens, almost subliminally conveying the fates of certain characters, including Tang, and then we move on to the next section of the story. When we see the Majinino again, time has jumped forward significantly, and we never actually see how things exactly played out. I was hoping for a little bit more of the Majinino, but I'm expecting one of 2 things. Either this is working on a principle similar to Alien's Special Edition, where we see the before and after of the xenomorph carnage, but what happens in between is left to our imaginations, or we may get back to it in a later episode. The series has so far taken some advantage of moving back and forward through time, so the missing pieces may yet to be revealed. I'm actually hoping for the latter because I actually really like the Majinino crew, and with such a short amount of screen time so far, we really do get a good sense of them. Their relationships, who gets along with who seems to be in a relationship or affair, and how they all generally interact. Even the mission itself that they had before going back to Earth sounds pretty interesting, and could be the basis of a tie-in novel or comic should they wish to do so. We get a decent enough sneak peek at their alien cargo. There are the facehuggers, of course, held in stasis, but obviously not quite dead. We see the carnivorous alien plant D. plumacari and the parasite eye creature T. ocellus. Also these tick/slug creatures, which have some interesting moments later on. The standout character of this section is Morrow, played by Babu Sise, who's pretty intense in a really quiet way with his role. He's the cyborg of the group, he's the security officer, and he ends up being the only survivor of the outbreak and subsequent crash to Earth, becoming a key player in the rest of the larger story. When time jumps forward to right before the Majinino's crash, there's a good moment where Morrow seals himself off in the mother room and just barely evades an attack by a rampaging xenomorph. He's able to take shelter in the impact room, a hidden compartment just big enough to fit one person in case of a crash. Side note, not only has Noah Hawley been able to include something convincing enough to have you believe someone, cyborg or otherwise, could survive such a crash, but it seems like he also aimed to solve the age-old supposed continuity error or plot hole or whatever you want to call it of the original Alien. We all remember that scene in the original film where Ripley is at the mother computer and discovers the details of Special Order 937. She thinks she's alone, and we do too, until one shot it's revealed that Ash is there in a shocking moment. But how did he get there? We didn't see or hear the door opening? Where exactly was he hiding the whole time? Well, if the Maginot and the Nostromo are close enough in design, then there must have been a hidden impact room in there too. 4.5 decades later, and the mystery has been solved. But anyway, being a cyborg, both with human and artificial parts, I'd assume Morrow would still be fair game as xenomorph fodder, and it still was a significant enough threat to him, based on some actions we see later and the fact that he lets the entire crew die, particularly one outside the mother room literally begging and screaming for help before dying horribly. I don't suppose he's bound by the typical Asimovian laws of robotics. He might be leaning a little bit more towards human. And already, just 20 minutes into the show, we get a nice combination of the familiar with the new. We Alien fans are well versed in both the drooling monstrous xenomorphs, but also the synthetic characters, which always end up playing significant roles in these stories. So we get that, but we also get the new angles to them. There are different aliens to give us the creepy crawlies this time around. They're interesting, thought has been put into them. As I mentioned in a previous video, they're kind of modernized versions of B-movie science fiction monsters, just like the Alien is. And we get these new types of synthetics, not just with Morrow being the cyborg, but of course, the hybrids. After the introduction to the Maginot, that's where the story takes us next. We're shown the Neverland research facility on Earth, owned by Prodigy Corporation, and it is of course filled to the brim with Peter Pan references. If you've been following some of the news and interviews about the show or have seen some of my coverage in other videos, this isn't much of a surprise. And I'm pretty sure at this point you know the overall concept of this story aspect. Wendy, originally named Marcy, is a terminally ill girl who has become a candidate to be the first hybrid. The first human to have their consciousness transferred into a body of a synthetic. This is a secret project, and her family will be meant to believe she died. Boy Cavalier tells Marcy, soon to be known as Wendy, that she was chosen for this honor because she's special. Very, very special. What makes her special beyond the circumstances we already know of has not been explained. Maybe something will be revealed later, maybe not. One thing we do learn, though, is that apparently this process can only work on children. The adult mind is too stiff, we're told. They can't make the trip, but kids' minds fit just right. As far as the actual science of it goes, we're not really given much of a lengthy explanation as to how it exactly works. Maybe to over-explain it would just amount to droning dialogue about fake science fiction nonsense that takes up valuable minutes in getting the story moving. I don't think any detailed explanation would be too convincing anyway, so maybe it's better off left vague. However it works, and Wendy awakes from her slumber to become a hybrid. This monumental occurrence comes with some concerns, some addressed, some not. Is the totality of a human's essence limited to what lies within their consciousness? If that can be transferred through Prodigy's scientific means, then what of the soul? Have they inadvertently proven that a soul does not actually exist? Maybe so. Wendy is aware of her new upgrades, but so far hasn't had the sneaking suspicion that a part of her may be missing. One interesting factor I never really considered until seeing it brought up on the show is that it could be a pretty difficult transition for a child to suddenly wake up in an adult body. While Tom Hanks and Jennifer Garner didn't seem to struggle too horribly in their experiences, it does take Wendy a little bit by surprise. Suddenly, she has breasts. Suddenly, she's taken a crash course in what can be best described as an artificial puberty. Kirsch, the android played by Timothy Olyphant, advises her. The human body manufactures hormones, dopamine, serotonin, estrogen, testosterone, that create moods. You don't have those anymore. Dame Sylvia, the scientist played by Essie Davis, adds, "We've tried to simulate them, to simulate adolescence as you grow into your adult body, so it's not just like flipping a switch." As promised by Noah Hawley in interviews, the Kirsch and Dame Sylvia characters are very much like the parental figures to Wendy. They each encourage different aspects to her hybrid identity. Kirsch makes the push for synthetic supremacy, while Sylvia is convinced that humanity has achieved immortality. The body is a vessel for the mind, Sylvia says. A human mind, on its path to endless life. Simulating the human experience is critical. Wendy asks, "If I'm not human, what am I?" Kirsch's answer, "Whatever you want to be." If there is a third parental figure in the mix, then that would be Arthur Sylvia, played by David Ristall, who is the husband of Dame, also working for Prodigy on this project. I already have an underlying fear for these characters. They're almost too good-hearted and well-intentioned to survive in this world. These two don't have any children of their own, we're told they're unable to conceive, and they think of these hybrids as their children. I believe this to be a critical mistake, but we'll see what happens later. More sick kids enter the facility and are guided by Wendy on their way to becoming hybrids themselves and are nicknamed the Lost Boys. We have Toodles, Slightly, Smee, Curly, and Nibs, all joining this hybrid gang and learning how to harness their new lease on life and new abilities. I'll give all of these actors credit. They truly do feel as if they are children suddenly transformed into adult bodies. Most of all, Sydney Chandler. The series itself came with a lot of hype, but fairly enough, so did this role, with the potential to be an instant star maker. Chandler lives up to it. I love the character, and I love the performance. She's great and brings so much to Wendy that is endearing, with the hopefulness of a child who has gained so much, but also instantly lost a tremendous deal as well. I was especially moved when it came to everything involved with her brother in the story. This is Hermit, played by Alex Lothar, a medic employed by Prodigy Corporation stationed in Prodigy City in New Siam. We can assume that in addition to much of the filming of the show taking place in Thailand, the actual setting of Earth and the crash takes place there too. Wendy misses her brother terribly and observes him every chance she's given. She comforts herself with memories of the two growing up, spending time with their father, in a cameo by Noah Hawley, watching movies together, a favorite being the 20th Century Fox Animation Studios classic Ice Age, which, due to the show's visual style, has already inspired some viral, good-spirited mockery. When the Maginot crashes, Hermit is sent with his team on a search and rescue operation. As you can guess, this concerns Wendy, and she convinces Cavalier to allow her and the Lost Boys, along with Kirsch, to join this search and rescue operation. That is the story point we're left with as the episode ends. Wendy's on her way to Prodigy City, determined to save her brother, who doesn't even know she's alive in this new form. This does not come without the philosophical dueling that has also somewhat become part of Alien's trademarks. Wendy and Kirsch have a back and forth that closes this chapter, and Kirsch pulls no punches about his belief that humanity is inferior. He once again encourages her to embrace her synthetic nature by abandoning her human aspects. You used to be food. Your lives were short and filled with fear. Then your brains grew. You built tools and used them to conquer nature. You built impossible machines and went to space. You stopped being food. Or, I should say, you told yourself you weren't food anymore. But in the animal kingdom, there is always something bigger or smaller who would eat you alive if they had the chance. That's what it is to be an animal. You're born, you live, you die. A great little monologue by Kirsch, delivered so wonderfully by Olyphant. When he drinks this in, stands up, sits right next to him, and replies, "My brother is not going to die." Kirsch scoffs at this. Of course he will. Injury, illness, old age, they all do. Generation after generation. All we can do is watch and take names. Wendy stays firm in her demeanor. "No," she says. "He's not gonna die. I'm gonna save him." There's a suggestion here that not only does she intend to save him from whatever dangers await inside the Maginot, but she may also try to convince him to become a hybrid himself, should the technology get there. I have some theories about where this may lead after episode 2's ending, but I'll get to that later. I think it was a good ending for the first episode, but at the same time, not a titillating, oh my god moment, so complimenting the premiere with episode 2 I think was a wise move. Overall, a strong first episode. It does a lot of setting up. There's a lot to get to as far as what you can consider the main plot, but the pace is fair. Sections are spread out nicely, and it does feel cinematic. It's a visually remarkable show, filmed very nicely, and maybe some people will take a little bit of an issue with the crossfades, but I actually think those were kind of cool. It gives the show its own unique visual identity, so it's not too slavish to every aspect of the 1979 film. The writing is good, I like the characters and have become invested in them. The actors really do a good job. Chandler, as I mentioned, is really strong in this lead. I loved her. And Babu Cisse is not just commanding of that first section, but of the entire episode. I especially like the one part after the crash where he changed the two responders to the pole. You begin to question his motives a little bit. Is this a good guy? A bad guy? What exactly is this guy's MO? And of course what follows was really good. The tick slugs make a reappearance, biting into one of the guy's jugular and filling up with blood like a water balloon. Absolutely disgusting. I love it. I don't know how much action we'll be seeing from these little guys in future episodes, but it was a good moment, and I do hope to see and learn more about them. Enough to go back to them and share some more in a future video, of these creatures and all the other creatures, really. I also have to give credit to Samuel Blenkin, playing Boy Cavalier. A character like this, obviously a send-up of the modern billionaire tech bro type, comes with a certain expectation and a certain kind of wariness. The initial fear was that this guy was going to be a lot like Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor in Batman v Superman. I know some people really like that portrayal, but it never really appealed to me. It was just too much, and there actually is a good deal of that type of portrayal to Cavalier. However, it's toned down a bit. He seems a lot more in control. While nerdy and strange, he's still a commanding presence, and still someone with the ability to intimidate. It's a good combination of Howley's writing of the character and what Blinken brings to him that makes it work quite well. Maybe not surprisingly, my favorite performance and character is Timothy Olyphant playing Kirsch. I instantly fell in love with the character upon his very first moment, having the conversation with Wendy about the Scorpion. I love the look of the character, I love the vocal presentation that Olyphant brings to him. I love the fact that he does have a little bit more of an edgier personality, and I think that is by design. Someone like Cavalier would want a synthetic by his side that's a little more challenging, as we do get some insight into with the next episode. As someone who is a big fan of the David character, played by Michael Fassbender in Prometheus and Alien Covenant, I'd say he's very much in good company with him. Just how far he'll go with his beliefs when it comes to synthetic supremacy, or if he may be swayed by Wendy's humanity, or if he can sway her, will be a fascinating journey to see unfold as the series continues. I'm looking forward to more of the character and more of the show in general. I'd say I've been effectively hooked, and I'm invested in all that it has to offer. But hold on, this isn't a complete love fest. I do have criticisms. You may have noticed that throughout this review I've been taking a lot of stock in maybe they'll explain this later. Hopefully they'll clarify certain things about this or that in a future episode, and that is a really tricky place to be when it comes to watching a series like this. There's a big risk of not getting the resolution you may be hoping for, and you're basically left hanging. It's much different from a movie. With a movie, you start it, 2 hours go by, and you get some sense of resolution. Hopefully, at least. With a TV series, they drop little ideas and concepts, maybe they'll get back to them, maybe they'll tweak things in future seasons so that it doesn't remain relevant. We all saw that kind of stuff with Game of Thrones, right? So that worries me a little bit. But it's hard to gauge how severe something may or may not be 2 out of 8 episodes in, so I suppose for now I have to give them the benefit of the doubt. And there are minor things here and there. I mean, I feel like the song choice for the end of the episode came out of left field a little bit. Maybe some of the Lost Boys can be slightly annoying at times, but kids can be annoying. Not all of the visual effects work, there's some questionable stuff here and there. But the big problem, the really big problem, is the alien itself. This is something we need to talk about. It's a guy in a suit. Very obviously, a guy in a suit. It's extremely difficult to not be conscious of that. This is something Ridley Scott worked on very seriously with the 1979 film. Make sure people don't realize they're looking at a guy in a suit. That was the goal. And it was successful for the most part. Shots were kept to a minimum showing this creature. It was hidden in the darkness or behind steam, and it certainly didn't hurt that they found an ideal performer in the impossibly tall and lean Balaji Badejo. I want to make it clear that no blame can go to Alien Earth's performer, Cameron Brown, who embodies every bit of the vicious nature of the xenomorph you could hope for. I think it's just the way they shot it, how they generally presented it. I've heard from a good number of people on the issue, and everyone seems to have a different take. It's too plasticky, it's too dry, they needed to slime it up a little bit, the movements on the head are too stiff, I don't know. But the agreement there is that something just isn't right. That's unfortunate. And yes, it's a very, very big problem when the sore thumb sticking out of the show called Alien is the fucking alien. I just don't think you can give a suit, no matter how good the suit actually is or how good the performer is, the kind of exposure needed for a more modern alien story. You do kind of want to show the alien off a little bit, have it do incredible things. I think back to when Alien Covenant came out, and I was a little disappointed in the lack of practical effects. I had seen the behind-the-scenes photos of this really good suit, and heard they had really talented, nimble dancers to do what was needed for the scenes, but then the movie came out, and it was all CGI. Some of the CGI was really, really good, and some of it was lacking. But the point is, there was not a single solitary second on screen that you could actually point and say, that's a guy in a suit. The official story we were told later was that the suit was always meant to be a placeholder with the intent of using a CGI alien. I don't know if I believe that. I think Scott took a look at some of the footage, said, no, that looks like shit, and resorted to CGI. That, to me, seems the more likely scenario. But then you had something like Alien Romulus come along, which really skillfully blended suit work, animatronic work, and CGI. Maybe not all of it was 100% perfect, but I defy you to take a look at the way the aliens were presented in Romulus compared to the way the alien is presented in Alien Earth and tell me it's not much, much better. But Alien Earth is a TV show, and Romulus was a one-and-done movie. With a series, what exactly are you going to do? The budget is definitely good, but was there ever any conversation where they said, yeah, let's pump up some extra money into this, and every time the alien is on screen, we'll make it CGI? Maybe there was, but I'll bet that came with conditions to severely limit the amount of time we actually get to see the alien on screen. And in order to tell the story they wanted to tell, with the scenes they wanted to include and the way they wanted to present them, they needed to show more of the alien. Scaling it back would simply not do. And the solution was to get together the best suit and animatronic head that they could, get a performer that really sells it, and take the gamble. This is what we got. I'm sure while putting it together in editing, maybe they thought it could have been better, maybe even reduce some screen time, because the shots are quick. But the bottom line is that they got what they needed, and the scenes played out the way they wanted to, and if it comes with criticism, so be it. Well, here it is. Here's the criticism. It's not as if it's horrible and laughable or completely unconvincing or anything, but it is noticeable, and that is an issue, and an important one. I take no pleasure in expressing this. I'd love to say it was completely flawless and looks great, but the reality is Alien Earth comes with some questionable xenomorph effects. I like the show enough to overlook it to a degree, and generally I want to keep watching the show, and I hope for its success. I hope for it to continue. But I do hope that if it continues with a second season, there is a better workaround. So, with that off my chest, or out of my chest, I feel that Alien Earth is ultimately a good time. I enjoyed the first episode. Quite a bit. They've lined up some great stuff, with interesting characters and concepts, and expanded upon this world that I hold so dear in ways that satisfy me as a fan, but also in ways that surprise me, with new ideas and elements that I never would have considered. It really is almost a half-and-half appreciation, as something alien and as a show in general that I want to follow and go back to with each week. I'm actually really curious to see how just the general viewer, who may not be a hardcore Alien fan but is at least somewhat familiar with Alien, may feel about the show. I can say pretty confidently that my appreciation for this episode grew quite a bit after watching it a second time. So I think with the unique situation Alien Earth has, with not just being on streaming but also on broadcast TV, it's likely to get a lot of more airtime on FX with reruns. And sometimes that's what it takes to find an audience. I remember when Breaking Bad first started, and there was only that first season, and AMC literally had no other shows. They would just play it over and over again until suddenly everyone realized how good it was, and it became the phenomenon that it was. I could actually see something similar happening to Alien Earth when it comes to non-alien fans. If we're looking at this first episode as really just the first chapter in what's basically an 8+ hour movie, I'm eager for more. I can't wait to see the full story unfold. I'll be tuning in each week, and I'll be back soon with a review of the second episode, Mr. October, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, please let me know your thoughts on the show. Did it deliver? Did it disappoint? And what are your hopes for the series as it continues? Please leave a comment below and tell me what you think. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. Please be sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to keep up with the latest from Alien Theory. My very special thanks today goes out to Nicholas Butta, our Wayland Utah executive, and Gregory Ford, the Patreon Hive Praetorian. A very special thanks to Lady Anne in the Ellen Ripley tier of excellence. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for further information. You can also follow me on social media. Follow @alien_theory on X, formerly Twitter. Follow @AlienTheoryYT on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.